Hello, myself Sonkul Ramakrishna here. Basically, we are talking about one of the topic that is apple creation. One of the person told that basically, yeah, apple creation basically it's very dangerous, na basically. Then he told that not apple basically each and everything basically you are creating na, that is creating problem only basically. That is going to create problem only. So one of the person told that because if you produce one apple basically, what is the income of apple basically? Just see basically per day basically you are going to earn at least basically 500 crore rupees, at least minimum basically. If you are producing outside basically, then it converts to $500 basically. It converts to $500 basically. So you can just imagine basically 500 crore dollar, that comes to like this. See, 500 crore rupees, 500 crore dollar basically. Dollar, see basically. So you can just see the income. See basically, if you are producing the apple basically, per day income is this basically. Per day basically income is this. So you can just imagine basically, per day income basically it's like that basically. So per day income is, you can just not imagine basically. Then if one person told that yes, yeah, basically it's very huge income basically. So if income is this much basically, then risk factor is also basically that much only basically. Because in Earth planet basically, if you want to earn money basically, for example, one person told that ये project manager जो है ना, the software delivery head basically, he is earning basically 1 crore rupees per month. But see this risk factor basically, because he is basically into this apple creation basically. Manager I am talking, project manager and software delivery head basically, he is earning more than 1 crore per month. But he told that basically, see his risk factor basically, he is going to give this much income basically. So you can just imagine basically the risk factor of the software companies also basically. So it's not so easy basically to create one apple also basically, because first of all you have to create the software basically, and that basically apple creation is not possible basically without the source of the software basically. That is, for example, you are creating software in Java, then basically Java SDK basically is required. That is a Java company basically, they will be responsible for this apple creation. Then basically Microsoft assume, so Microsoft group will be responsible. PHP basically has not reached up to this level basically, so they basically can't create the apple. But they basically might be, because it's a huge level of infrastructure basically, sorry, huge level of software customers basically has joined with the PHP, so they also basically might be jump into this, but it's very dangerous basically. See the risk factor basically, you see. So one of the person told that yes basically, so base basically of the software company basically is like this basically, then only basically you can jump into the apple creation basically. So one of the person told that to create one apple basically, you required all types of antibiotic, total number of sand, all types of water, all types of air data basically, all types of nuclear data, all types of food energies basically, taste, that is drugs basically, that is very dangerous, that is drugs basically. And lots of people says that this drugs basically taste also, this basically is tested also, that also by the software companies basically. Software companies manager, software companies software delivery heads, software companies developers basically, they test this drugs basically. Then one of the person told that, are you sure basically you're talking about this basically? Then Sunil Arnar and few people told that yes basically, that is drugs basically, which are tested in the software company in the form of data basically. That basically software company owner basically only knows that basically this is a drugs, it's not a basically the item basically which they are consuming basically. So lots of people says that basically, for example, how basically Tata salt basically tastes like a different salt basically. Then he told that yes basically, that's the question basically. How apple basically tastes like a apple only basically. How dal basically tastes like a dal only basically. How oil basically tastes like a oil only basically. How potato basically tastes like a potato only basically. How basically the onion tastes like a onion only basically. That is the with help of the drugs basically. That also legally. that also this is done legally basically. So you can just imagine basically the other department of police are also basically there, who basically knows that basically the drugs basically are used in creation of human needs. So lots of people say that you have to be active basically. Lots of police groups basically pick up the drugs basically, and they basically say that basically this is going to use in the onion creation basically. So you can just imagine the mafia groups also basically. Drugs only basically who produce basically. They basically has given the name of the mafia basically. But they are actually who basically? They are the doctors basically. They have given the name mafia groups. But this is basically created by whom basically? This is created by doctors only basically. Chemicals group basically, chemical experts basically. And they only basically give the drugs basically to one city. They basically give, I will take one example basically. Then it will be clear. For example, one person basically is moving from the vehicle basically. Vehicle means assume that basically is moving from the train basically. Assume basically, just taking as an example basically, how this basically works basically. So the company owner basically know that basically he is moving from this train basically, right? So he basically informs the police department that this person basically sitting in this chair basically, he basically is having the drugs basically. So you can take that drugs basically. So they basically what they do, they basically picks that particular train, picks that particular bogie number, and picks that particular seat number, and they basically picks the drugs basically. Like this basically they takes the drugs of onion basically. Like this basically each and every drugs basically are taken. Why? Because it's legally basically you can't. That means this is illegal thing basically, but it has converted into legal basically. So like this basically lights are there basically, human souls are there, then basically the energies are there, text box equal to energy. This also basically have to include basically. So the group basically who are into the Apple creation basically, they basically should know each and everything basically. Then basically all incidents basically happen, 93 bomb blasts basically. That data are also basically created in that data are also basically energy data that is also included here basically. Then blast and basically which happened the 11th September basically, that also incidents basically included here. All sector basically, for example 100 types of army basically groups are there in India basically. Assume that basically 3 army groups basically ended basically till now basically, after the earth planet generation started, 3 army basically groups ended. So 3 army groups ended basically, right? So that 3 army group ended basically, that also going to affect the Apple creation basically. So that basically converts to this basically, that is this basically. And then basically the antibiotic of disease basically are taken here basically. So you can just imagine each and everything basically are connected basically. Then basically all utilities created. For example, computer created, right? Basically, so one person is eating the computer apple basically. That time basically the computer also basically he is working on computer also basically. So that time basically something basically connected to his body basically. That was what basically he actually not added the Dell data, he not added the HP data, he actually assumed that basically was drinking apple, and he basically not added he was using, assume that basically he was using one of the computer laptop basically. That laptop data basically was not added in the Apple creation basically. That apple was not added in the Apple creation basically. So one of the person told that yes basically you are correct. So one of the person told that, do you think basically this is possible basically, this everything basically to add, is this possible basically practically basically? Then he told that no basically, that practically is not possible. So what the doctor industry basically has created this basically, or basically the medical industry or the energy industry, they basically created, that is vitamins basically, that is ions, coppers, then basically the salt, then each and every vitamins basically. In next video basically we are going to see that only basically how basically this everything basically is incorporated, that is the merged with vitamins data in next video basically.